in collaboration with the One Stop Financial Wellness Committee. My name is Cassandra Chai, she, her, hers, and I am one of the APARC graduate assistants and will be facilitating the conversation on budgeting. Today, we're pleased to have two financial wellness counselors, Mila and Ralph, with us today, who will be discussing what budgeting is, how Asian American students can talk about budgeting with their family, and how to create a budget plan that aligns with their unique cultural background and values. With that said, Ralph and Mila, can you introduce yourself, share your pronouns, and a brief description of your job? Also, if you would like to answer and if you're comfortable, can you share what is your best and worst financial decision that you made when you were in college?
Oh boy. Well, Mila, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first? It's your choice. All righty, sounds good. Hey, everybody. My name is Ralph. I'm a one-stop counselor at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. I use he, him pronouns. Two-time graduate of the U of M, so I feel good about that. So undergraduate and graduate. I work in One Stop as a one-stop counselor. I can speak on, that's what both Mila and I are. So we work as one-stop counselors. So on a day-to-day basis, we help students with financial aid advice. We help them figure out their registration, their billing cycles, anything really. We do all kinds of stuff. And so we really want y'all to feel comfortable to come to One Stop and seek help. But on a more unique level for Mila and I, we also work as financial wellness counselors, meaning we, apart from our other staff, set aside time to meet with students on a one-on-one basis about just kind of whatever's on their mind financially. And it doesn't necessarily have to relate to your loan package or your grants or whatever. It can connect about budgeting, about maybe opening a credit card, looking towards future financial goals. We really cover a whole array of topics. And the nice thing is when you are set aside with one of us, we dedicate our time away from the meeting to also plan and like specify it to you and what your interests are and what you want to talk about in that meeting. So I really encourage folks to do those financial wellness meetings because it's really, we want it to just be an open conversation about what you want to talk about and as it relates to your personal financial goals. Oh, and my money, can we come back to me? I'll let Mila do her introduction and then we'll come back and I'll do my regret and my victory on finances.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mila Zhang, and I will just share that my mom is Chinese and my dad is Hmong. So that's why my last name is Zhang. And I've been a one-stop counselor for a couple years now. I graduated from Carleton College and currently I'm in a master's program at the U. And I guess my biggest money mistake in college was Target runs. So I would go to Target and end up spending way too much money every time. I think I've gotten better at it now, but at a certain point, Target was kind of like, you go in for one thing and you come out with 10 things every visit. And that was not great for my budget. The best decision I made was applying for scholarships. So I ended up with only about a couple $1,000s in loans when I graduated from my undergrad. And that's because I worked really hard when applying for scholarships and it really paid off.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, Mila. That made me think, okay, my financial flaw I made in college is I bought a video game system by selling my textbooks right after the midterm mark, thinking, it's midterms. I already used them. I won't need them again. Mistake. I needed them again. And so not a wise money choice. I've learned my lessons though. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I'm hoping I can impart a few of those do's and don'ts with you all. But that was a definite don't because I was scrambling at the end of the semester to see who could share a book with me, and that was uncomfortable. I'd say my greatest money victory in college though was for whatever reason, amongst my wild decisions, I decided that I really wanted to pay attention to how much I was spending for my living expenses, and I wasn't really willing to pay for luxury. I wanted to, and I didn't live in squalor or anything that was, not nice to live in, but I was really mindful of how much I was making and like what I was bringing in as far as income and how much of that was going towards living and how I could manage that better and make more room for myself to use that money in other areas. And I think that was something I was, now looking back on, that was probably a more mature decision than I was ready for at the time, but I did it. And so it was fortunate. And that's something I tell a lot of folks to do in financial wellness meetings. If you have the opportunity to put yourself in a really good living situation where you're not required to spend a lot of money to do so, it'll open up a lot of things for you in your other parts of your financial life.
Thanks for sharing.
Housing
Isla,
should be
Ralph.
about, well, I was just going to add onto Ralph that housing should be about 30% of your overall budget. So it's great that Ralph was already planning that early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for any college student, there's oftentimes this kind of desire. You're coming into a new situation, a new part of your life where you maybe have more financial opportunity than you have had, especially while you're in college where money can be really tight. You might be really tempted to find the nicest and the newest and find places that are really desirable to live, but it's a luxury for a reason. A lot of people pay a lot of money for those luxury apartments and to just have that title of luxury living. And, it's really up to each financial person's situation. But if you're able to forego some of the luxury in your living, you could actually open up other areas to be more luxurious or be more advanced thinking with how you want to save that money.
I guess thinking about finances in terms of like luxury. I know some students, they have like their personal goals and maybe they also want luxury. But another thing that they may be considering is how they're spending their money towards their family. A very common, I would say, at least based in I'm Cambodian and Chinese, Cambodian Chinese background, that family is a cultural value as well as just being part of this like collective society. So how can students who are in that position also take the first steps to learn how to budget for themselves, but also for their family?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So it is a great thing that you are giving back to your family. It's always good when you are giving money away to other people. And I feel like that's a value that a lot of people should have. Also, it's really mature for somebody to be able to give away their money to someone else because that shows independence and maturity. So I first just want to say that you are benefiting yourself in a lot of ways. In terms of your family and community, first, we just want to say that it's great, and I want you to be respectful of any of your family values and your community values, but also at the same time, you should be realistic about setting boundaries and making sure you have enough money to give to them, or you're budgeting around so you don't overspend and you don't go into debt because of it. So there should be some sort of plan if that is something that you need to do regularly, or you see that is coming up in the future. It's something that you can put into your budget.
Was there anything you wanted to add, Ralph? I saw your mouth move. I was.
No, I don't. I think Mila did. Yeah, she nailed it. I think that's so true. It's such a respectful quality to be able to give back to your family after they've given a lot to you. I think that's so important. I guess the only thing I would add in, and Mila even touched on this, but I guess to double down on her point is it's about independent capacity. So like, do you as an individual have the ability to offer it up? I mean, it's not even like, it's just a matter, are you meeting your own individual needs? Are you able to meet your own financial wellness and take care of yourself financially, independently? And then what's there to be added to the family mixture after that? Because it can cause, I think I could see where a gap could occur, I guess is where I'm seeing is a gap could occur between you wanting to give, but not giving yourself the opportunity to give to yourself first. And you're then living maybe not in the best situation that you could be because of it. So it's a balance is how I hear it.
So when would you consider students to start thinking about it? Typically, I would say that this idea of giving back to your family takes place after college, like once you earn your college degree or once you earn a good job. When do you think is the best time for students to start planning and creating that type of budget plan?
Yeah, I think it's all about communication. I mean, every person's family situation is different. So some parents or family members might not want that support from their students after they graduate, and some may need it. So it's all about evaluating what your family's current budget is, and if they need your support, if you can kind of have a conversation with them, or by just observations, you can see like, does my family need me to assist, and how do I go about that? So they might not ask for it, but how can I start talking to them about, hey, I can contribute this much. But otherwise, some people may be better well off, or maybe they want their children to kind of just be on their own and be independent, and they don't want to take money from their kids. So it's all varied depending on each circumstance.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Cassandra, to your question about when's the right time, I mean, that's really difficult to pinpoint, because that's going to be very different for every individual, especially as they progress in their career, finish the first degree, but have another degree to come afterwards. You know, a lot of folks have different life plans. And I think for me, it would just be, if I was in that position, I would just think, I need to set expectations for those around me, those in my family, as far as, you know, where I'm at and like what this is going to take from me in order to get to a place where I can give back, and set expectations as far as like, if I even can give back at this moment, because of a recent college graduate is just finding a job and starting at an entry level, doesn't mean that the future opportunity to contribute to your family and give back isn't there, but helping your family see that this journey is just starting, that financial repayment and giving to your family group is just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like maybe they think that, oh, you're supposed to get a job, a high paying job right after college, but it might take a little bit of time, and just explaining those things that might be normal for college students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, if you go on to get advanced degrees and are borrowing to do so, you know, you earn more initially, but you're also paying more after graduation because you're borrowing more loans to earn that higher paying job. So just because you hold a very esteemed title or a really advanced position doesn't necessarily mean independent financial freedom. It might mean that you just are contributing more of that money back into paying what your education cost was. So that's a setting expectations thing 101 for folks. I think anybody would have they would need a little addition, some more context as far as what's really all on the table here for me individually.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned just that, I guess, budgeting 101. Is that also a part of your financial wellness counseling? And are students offered like free sessions?
Yeah, we'll meet with you about anything. So if you want to meet with us and write out a budget, just write that in your intake form. We basically have like an intake form for people, and just write that you want to actually build out a budget, because we're all well equipped to have that conversation. And depending on who you get, if you get me, we'll have a very in-depth conversation about budgeting. But if each person in that group is going to be well equipped to have a conversation and start you out on the path as far as what budgets work. And I think this is kind of free financial wellness advice. If for anyone who wants to go down, do a budgeting session with us, the number one bit of advice we give on budgeting for anybody, any person, the best budget is the one you use. Many people set out to start a budget and do a spreadsheet they built themselves, a spreadsheet they found on Google. They use apps that they connect their bank accounts with. And if you don't use any of them, then it doesn't have a purpose. And so find the one that you gravitate towards. find the one you feel invested in, and that's the one you'll use, and you're already actually ahead of the pack, I would say, by just finding the one that you like to use.
I am currently using a spreadsheet. I do not calculate it. It's kind of scary. I feel like with Mila, it might be going a lot towards target. And I also use, there's two different budgeting apps I can't think of right now, but I guess I still haven't found my approach to budgeting. There's also this, like, I guess personally, an idea and thinking about like the background potentially of students where there's a gambling addiction in the family, and even this Theravada Buddhist concept of like merit, the more you give, the more like your reincarnation will be better. You'll have a better life in the family or in your next life. And there's kind of this idea of like win some, lose some. How would you go about students who are in that situation? How can they like reframe their thinking about budgeting?
So we aren't experts on gambling. So we can't give any of probably the best advice that's out there. So we encourage students to look at different resources. The University of Minnesota has a website for gambling addiction, and they can find some resources on there and connect with more versed counselors in terms of gambling. But what we will say is that you should research and find the signs of gambling addiction and be very cautious, and just so that you recognize it in yourself if you have gambling addiction or with other people that you care about. So it is a tricky situation when it's tied to your culture, but it's important to know the pros and cons of gambling. Like, it may be fun, but it could be very detrimental to a person's income, and all of their income might just be sucked away. So just knowing more knowledge about gambling and where it may go. I think just talking with other people who may also have family members who have gambling addictions, or yourself if you have had a history with gambling addiction, it's great to just talk about it with other people, because it's not something that you have to deal with alone. And so you should be able to just talk about it and share your stories so that you can gain tips about what you can do, and you can see like, okay, well, is it leaning more positive or negative? Probably more negative, but you never really know until you start getting out there and looking at it.
Is there anything else you would like to add to that, Ralph?
No, that's exactly what she and I looked at, that kind of question, that topic beforehand, and we both agreed that it's not really something that One Stop is equipped to talk about, especially our capacity as financial wellness counselors. That goes beyond our scope. That does go into where you may want to seek out professional help, which the University of Minnesota offers. Even if you just want to start the conversation, there's folks over there that can help. So I agree completely with Mila on everything she said.
Yeah, that is really great to know that there are resources out there for our students. I guess, can you explain just an overview of budgeting? We just kind of jumped into it. I think there's like a basic understanding of like savings, thinking about the future, managing money, but can you provide more details, like in-depth details about budgeting?
Sure. Yeah, I can jump in and take this one. Budgeting it's a really at its core, it's a look at where is my money coming from and where is my money going to. That's as simple as it can be. That's budgeting 101 right there. Where is it going? How does it come to me? That money, that is. So for you as an individual person, to start a budget, to start really understanding your budget, you want to look at those two criteria and kind of parcel them out, separate those two. Here's how I end up getting money. Here's where I go to start earning money. Maybe that's through financial aid you're receiving. Maybe it's through a job you're working at. Maybe it's through your family. A lot of ways that money comes to us, a lot of ways. Okay. And so seeing how that money is being brought in is step one. Step 2 is going to be to look at where your money's going out towards. And if you're saying like, okay, you can see monthly. Monthly is a pretty standard budgeting timeline because it's a perfectly clear start and finish night, and it's not too big, right? You're not going a whole year's budget because it might be hard to hold yourself accountable if you're budgeting for an entire year's worth of trips to McDonald's versus a month's worth of trips to McDonald's. So that's where a month tends to be. And then monthly income, it's easier to track your monthly income. So those two things, you can look at it at its core as, where's my money coming from? That's a good start. Where's my money going out towards? And then if you look at that and you say, oh boy, my money is going out more than it's coming in, then you're actually running what's called a deficit. You're spending more money than you're bringing in. And that needs to be corrected because it's not a sustainable model and you'll run out. You'll run out of whatever you have. And then a surplus would be where you're spending less money than what you're bringing in. And in that case, if you have a surplus situation, that's where you can be a little more creative with what you want to do with that extra money. And let me tell you, it's not that easy. Like no one's budget is as easy as to say, okay, I have a surplus this much. Oh, I have a deficit this much. There's things that fluctuate. Life happens. And you can always break things down even farther. But that just gives you a general idea of what the strategies are for looking at your budgets. Where's the money coming in from? Where's the money going out to? And am I in the green by having a surplus, or am I in the red for having a deficit? So the questions you can ask yourself after that, let's peel back the onion just a little bit further. When you look at budgeting, you can look at your income a couple ways. It doesn't necessarily just have to be, I got money. It can be, how did I get my money? So if you're working at, like a good example would be, let's say you work a job that's hourly and you make $20 an hour with the potential for overtime or holiday hours, something along those lines. Your income can actually fluctuate. It's not stuck. It can go up and down. You get less hours this week, you earn less money. You gain more hours, you work around holiday, you get more money. So that is a variable income. That means you are really putting yourself in a position to be a maximized earner according to your time and energy and that type of output. Then the other side of that is maybe it's a fixed income, saying, let's say you work a job that's a salary, and your earnings are what they are. You get a certain amount of dollars per year. And if you have that type of income, you can set your watch to it. You can basically say, okay, I know every 2 weeks, my paycheck is the exact same. It's not going to change. I can work as many more hours or as few hours as I want. It's stuck there. So you have the fixed and the variable income. One is available to change, and one is going to be pretty consistent throughout your earnings. So that's income. You can look at that differently. The same thing, the same thought process can be applied to your expenses. There's a variable expense, like for a monthly budget. Let's use groceries as an example, something most of us need to have to eat and survive and be happy. So your grocery budget one month may look different than another month. Maybe the month that you're celebrating a holiday, have a lot of birthday parties, you want to do a lot of barbecues. I don't know. You just choose what you want to do. But let's say those months, your grocery budget can go up. Maybe there's some other months that your grocery budget went down. So that you can see how those are going to fluctuate. And then there's also fixed expenses. Good examples are bills, like a cell phone bill is a fixed expense. Similar with your rent is a fixed expense. You can set your watch to those expenses. And oftentimes, when I tell folks to look at their budget, use those fixed expenses and to see really truly, what am I paying each month? What am I paying each month to live the life I live? Who are the people that I pay regularly and for what? And then you can look on after that to say, okay, before we get down that path, that really in its core are the two, I would say, really important things about budgeting. Your expenses and your income expenses, and then are they fixed expenses and income, or variable, or fixed variable income? I don't know. I might have messed up the wording on those, but generally the concept there holds true. And now you can really delve deeper into how you're using your money and how you can effectively put it to work. I'm a big advocate that you don't budget yourself to limit yourself. Don't budget yourself so you don't live the best life you can live. Budget yourself so you know what you're available to do right now so you can be responsible. You're not letting people pick away at your pennies and your pocketbook for no good reason, and that you're able to live that really great life for you, but just with a plan, with a strategy, so that it's not just, I hope this works out. Because you can do them both. It's all about how you prioritize everything. It's tough for a college student. I think this is just a core thing. Any college student across the world, it just is so true. College students just have limited sources of income and they have a lot of expenses. Okay. So in those situations, some of these conversations about budgets, they can frustrate people because they'll go, what does this mean? This doesn't apply to me. I don't have nearly the capacity to say my income is this and my expenses are that. I can't even think that far ahead. This is all theoretical. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, and I don't want anybody to feel like this couldn't apply to you, because it all can. It's just each situation can be so different, and I wouldn't want there to ever be someone who thinks it's a one size fits all model, because it really isn't. It doesn't fit anybody, any student perfectly. It really needs to be customized to you, because your income and your expenses are different than your neighbors. So managing that. So I kind of went on a little rant there. Mila, what kind of things do you want to add into that?
Yeah, Ralph and I, we can talk about budgeting for hours. So,
Yeah, for
so
real.
you gave us like a really open-ended question there. Couple of things I'll add is when you do have your income, for me, it's been helpful to use what is commonly used is like 50% of your income for the month should be used towards your needs. So that could be your bills and things you need to live. And then 20% goes into savings, and then 30% for everything else. So I would say those are more of my variable expenses. And the needs are more like my fixed expenses. And that just kind of helps me. I think, for example, when you're a college student and say you make $200 for this month from work study, and you're thinking about, okay, what do I need versus what do I want to do, entertainment, versus how much do I save? You might have less that you can save because you just don't have enough funds. And that can be pretty difficult. And so we understand that when we talk about budgeting, it's going to be different for each student. But for students, say, who are graduated and they're having like a regular part-time or full-time job, then it's kind of like a strange period right after you graduate, because you still might be living at home. And so if you aren't having to pay for as many bills at that time, you can take advantage of that and make sure that you are taking care of your personal expenses, like your loans, just so that you have more room later on to actually have a living. But yeah, and each person's values are going to change. Before, we talked about like family support or other donations based off of your values that you might want to budget in there too. So yeah, it is going to be difficult. Like you, Cassandra, I'm still trying to figure out what my best budgeting tool is. I think it works for a spreadsheet works for me one minute, an app works for me another minute. So it kind of changes throughout time. But yeah, it's something that you can continually work on, and you can always learn something new about money. You can use your resources too. So right now, especially because of COVID, there's a lot of SNAP, so the federal food assistance for students. And if you need that, that's something that you can definitely look into. And that student who's making $200, if they get some money from SNAP for food, then that may be able to help them in another area that they need a budget for. So I would say definitely use your resources.
Mm-hmm. With SNAPs, is it if a student is living at home, would they still be able to apply for it?
It depends. There's certain criteria for SNAP, and you can look it up online. But basically, you have to be your own household, and household means that you are not buying groceries with other people in your household, and you're not cooking and eating meals with them. You can share like some staple items like milk and bread and stuff. But if you're doing some of those things on your own, then you can be considered your own household. And it used to be like you had to work a certain number of hours or you had to have work study in order to qualify as a college student. But right now the eligibility is a little bit more loose. So I would encourage students to look into it. And if they're eligible, they should apply.
Thanks for explaining more on what SNAP is. Ralph, I guess I have this, I can just see your mouth move. And I always feel like once I'm ready to talk, it's like your mouth just shuts down.
No, go ahead, Cassandra. No, go ahead. Whatever you were going to say.
Well, I had interrupted. Do you remember what you were about to say before I had asked Mila about SNAP?
I don't think so. No, I guess budgeting. I think one of the hardest things to do when you start out budgeting, I guess some more just kind of back on the budgeting advice wagon is, the hardest thing to do when you start budgeting is to figure out what is spending too much on something. Because you might think like, what? I really enjoy eating out for lunch every day. And like, if I enjoy it, this should be something I treat myself to. And I agree. I agree to a certain capacity that you should be paying yourself and rewarding yourself in ways like, I like to eat out, so I'm going to treat myself and I'm going to eat out. I think that's part of budgeting. Is just the other part of that, though, is knowing how much is too much and when that you should be stopping. Because if you're eating out and it's eating up 50% of your monthly income, well, like Mila said, that 50% of your income should go towards needs about. So you're spending about the same amount of money on eating out as you are on your needs. And it's going to change for everybody about how much your needs account for versus how much your wants account for versus how much you want to save, or going back to a previous topic, how much you want to give back to family members. It's all going to depend on what you can do and how much your income is, and what your expenses are. A lot of times those needs, though, think of those as like the really objective ones. I need a roof over my head. I need groceries in me. I need internet to be a student and to do all these other things. I need a car maybe to get to and from, or bus pass. I don't know, whatever you're doing to transportate yourself around, transport yourself around. And then, there's other things too that are needs. You need to do these. Oftentimes a cell phone and paying for a cell phone is a need so you can stay in touch with those around you. And so when you're looking at your expenses, back to that like budgeting basics, if you're looking at your expenses, look at a lot of those really objectively and say, this is a need, this is a need, this is a need. And when you get to those items where you're like, do you really need to go eat at, I don't know, a restaurant in Dinkytown, or do you like to do it? It's a want. Doesn't mean you don't have to do it, but it is something you should be mindful of, and how much of that has been taking up your budget over the course of this last month. That's why a month is a good time frame, is you can kind of see a percentage breakdown of all those different things.
And I will add one quick thing. We do have a connection with Second Harvest Heartland for the SNAP program. So the university has connection with them. So if you just look up, Second Harvest, University of Minnesota, you can find some people who you can call or fill out a form, and they'll reach out to you through text and phone. And so they can answer any questions and even help you with the application. So that's a great resource as well. And of course, there's a lot of different food resources in the community and through the U of M.
Do you provide those resources on your website, or would I be able to? Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, we have those resources on our One Stop website under our, it used to be under our federal relief assistance, but
let's see.
Okay. I see. So if you go to our One Stop homepage and you click on student emergency funds, you can find a list of different resources there in the community.
Okay, perfect. I guess going back to I guess that kind of calculator of 50, 30, 20. If students are living, say, at home, but they're making money, they would be able to save. And if they're going through the idea of like, do I need this? Maybe like, do I need it or do I want it? How much should they be putting into their savings then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's gonna vary. If you want to go off the percentages, like Mila had mentioned earlier, uh, oftentimes a good measurement for what amount you should be putting in your savings monthly is 5% of your income should go into your savings, and that's for a short-term savings. That's looking at emergency funds. Think of that as your true blue emergency funds. 5% is not like going to blow the doors off anything, but you know what? It really accumulates quickly. And it's something that if you're dedicated to it, you put the money in savings before you ever allow yourself to spend it. So if you just put it away before you're ever allowed to spend it, or think of that money as, you know, money to burn. I hate to say it that way, but really, if you make it like that, you'll just get used to just always having 5% less of money to play with because you're stuck tucking it away for savings. To kind of go on top of your point there, Cassandra, about if you're living at home and maybe needs breakdown is less, you might find yourself then in a position you can bump up some of those numbers. You can add a little bit more money into your short-term savings. You can add a little bit more money into other areas of your life, but that's also going to depend. I mean, it's really going to all depend on what you want to do and how you value where your money's going. What do you think about that, Mila?
I was thinking about something and
No worries.
I totally forgot. So I think when you have a little bit of money at home and you're making a little bit more, there's this idea of like sinking funds. I think that it doesn't really work in my mind, because when I think of sinking, I think of something negative. But you can think of it kind of like a savings jar. It could be electronic in a savings account or physical. But if you say you want to save like $100 for Christmas, then you can split that up throughout time, throughout a certain duration, and then save up that money so that you have it for that. Instead of using your credit card for it, you can have the money so you don't have to borrow in order to buy and do what you want.
Mm-hmm. I guess with borrowing and talking about loans earlier, there was a question, not currently in this live chat, but with a student who had asked how to budget with loans. Oh, something random. I actually remember the app that I use. It's called Mint.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Mint user. I use several different budgeting things, but Mint is one of them. I enjoy it, but that's kind of goes to the point of what works for you. I tried a few other things. In Mint itself wasn't doing it, but like Mint plus a couple spreadsheets I did, and like a Google document I keep track of stuff on. Like, it isn't going to be a silver bullet perfect shot. This is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes a hodgepodge, and that's fine too. Mila, what do you think about that question about budgeting with loans?
So I guess I want to know more. Are they referring to like how to pay back a loan, or how to include that in their budget?
Yeah, so the full question is how to budget for post-grad with your first job or life on your own. So I guess it would be the person or the student has yet to have loans, but potentially it's thinking about loans if they are going to like a higher ed.
Yeah, when it comes to repayment on loans, there's different plans that you can choose. The one that we recommend is the standard repayment plan. And there's other types of plans like the graduated plan that increases your payment throughout time, and the income driven plan based off of how much you make. There might be a few more plans as well, but the one we recommend is a standard, because you're going to be paying you're going to be paying off the loan more quickly. And whichever plan you use, what I recommend is paying more than the minimum, because they're gonna say, hey, pay $200. And if you just pay $200, then it's gonna take a lot longer to pay off the loan. If you just did like 400 or even 250, it's gonna decrease the amount of interest that you'll be paying in the future, and just decrease the amount of time overall. Ralph, do you have anything to add?
Well, that was a good question they asked, because, there's two ways, I guess, for the true question where, how do you manage loans, maybe existing loans you have while you're going to start a new program. Like Milo was mentioning, you can always defer them, but you might want to contribute a little bit of money there to help offset the growth, because, just because you're in school doesn't mean that the interest you used on those loans goes away. The interest begins and the interest continues. So you want to be really mindful of that, because you can really stop a lot of growth and put yourself in an awesome position by contributing and just looking at your budget and throwing just the interest at your loans each month. If you want to know who your loan servicer is and the amount of interest that accrues on it, go to studentaid.gov and you'll be able to identify that. If you ever used a private lender, it'll direct you to where your private lender, how they want you to log in, but it'll tell you who those people are. So the other thing I thought of when I heard that question you originally posed is some people will use the income from a student loan to live their life in college. Maybe that's pay rent, buy groceries, buy books. They use a refund check from student loans in order to live their life. And one of the things about that is it's a fixed money, right? It comes in on a fixed period, the start of the semester. And usually it comes in one big chunk. And you're then responsible to make sure that chunk of money gets you to the next time that money disperses, the next start of the next term. So when you're looking at your budget, if you are a student who fits that description of using student loan money or financial aid, doesn't have to be loans, any kind of financial aid to help pay for life outside of like just paying the U of M, well, that's kind of a tough thing, because you're getting it all at once and you're being held to a really responsible high standard saying, all right, do your best, don't overspend, which can be hard for any human ever. But what you should do then is you should kind of chunk that out into, okay, if I get it in September and I don't get my next disbursement until January, I have September, October, November, December, January, 5 months to make this work. And you just have to budget yourself accordingly so that you use that money over the course of the 5-month span. That's how you should look at that. And that's how you should really be viewing that income, because you may only get it in one big chunk, but it's got to last 4 months or 5 months or however long that's going to be. So yeah, I lived with loans for a while. I lived for student loans for a while after graduation. When I started my master's program, I still was paying on my undergraduate student loans. I would say I didn't graduate with an astronomical amount of loan money, but I definitely was right around where the average is for most students graduating from an undergraduate program. And one of the things, I'm glad someone said something to me at the right moment, at the right time, but they had mentioned if you start your grad program, just carve out money to put towards your student loans from undergrad, just whatever is gaining interest, just carve out a little money in your budget to do that. And I really noticed a difference. So I lived that firsthand, and it was because just heard it at the right time. And that's something you should really look into and see if that's something you're able to do.
Thanks for sharing your personal experiences. Both of you touched upon interest. I do not have any student loans, so I'm grateful for that. But can you talk more about interest rate? Does it happen like annually, monthly? Can you expand just more about that, please?
Yeah, so with interest, when it comes to federal undergraduate loans, there's 2 types of loans. One is subsidized. Subsidized is always better. That one, you don't have to pay the interest while you are more than half time in school. And the other one is unsubsidized. So that one is going to be accruing interest. And these loans, that unsubsidized loan interest will accrue monthly after it's dispersed. So some people, they like to pay the interest while they're in school, or even pay off the loan while they're in school, so that when they graduate, they won't end up with so much debt, because interest is a percentage of the loan that you took out.
Yeah. So like Like if you want to see like an estimate of what that monthly interest would be, studentaid.gov has a calculator you can use where you can plug in the amount of money you're planning to borrow, the interest rate of that money, and it'll show you on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and a monthly basis, yearly basis, all these different time frames. Here's how much interest would be on that loan. And it kind of helps paint a nice picture as you maybe go into a future loan that you're going to borrow, and kind of what's the deal, what's at stake, and really how that looks. But the beauty of a student loan is they don't require you to pay anything while you're in college. They don't expect you to make any payments. All of these payments we're talking about, it's all just on your own in addition to it, in addition to having the loan. But if money's tight and you're really not able to do that, the student loan people, they don't expect you to pay anything. But it's kind of a balancing act again, because if you don't pay any interest on the loan, which most don't, just so you know, most don't, it's going to accrue. It's going to grow over a time period, because 1% interest on $100. Next month you owe them 101, and then that continues to grow from there. So that's the idea behind loan interest. But yeah, it's like I said, don't feel like you have to do that, because some folks, it's more valuable to complete your degree and to have that advanced degree and open up those future pathways for yourself, and then just make your loan payments when you can. We're talking more in that instance of like, you have the ability, you've budgeted, you crunched your numbers, you were able to look at what your incomes and expenses were, and you said, I can do that. And then you can make those adjustments or make those additional payments accordingly.
When it comes to loans, like if this person is thinking about going to grad school, but they only receive a certain amount of money from like the government, I'm unsure if the government provides like packages for graduate schools, but they are considering taking out private loans. Are there any positives or negatives with that?
Yeah, positive loans. The positive thing to private student loans is the interest rates are set by the free market. If the interest rates are lower because of the state of the economy or because you have a really great credit rate, all of those things can be a beneficial, something beneficial to a private loan. Is they're going to look at you objectively as a borrower and just say, yeah, you know what, you've got all these great things going on. We can give you a little bit better interest rate than the federal loans. That's not the most common thing, though. Oftentimes, the federal loans are great because it's a set amount, a set rate, it's fixed, it's not changing, and it's just going to be there. To your question about if I'm a future graduate student, I'm thinking about going, you can get loans. Like the government, they're going to give you loans to go to graduate school, but they will not offer any type of need-based aid. They're not going to give any grants, or there's not any FAFSA-based scholarships. When you get to the graduate level, anything past undergraduate, they're going to just say, here's your loan package. So if you're a future graduate student who's seeking the most financially savvy way to go about it and to save yourself some loan money, is find programs that want to pay you to do it. Find places that give you graduate assistantships. Find places that will give you tuition benefits, even if it means like a non-resident tuition waiver at a school in a different state. That just they're willing to do that. It might just cost you less than going and paying that same rate at your current college or university. So it's about what kind of aid each department can give you. And that can be a way that you can secure some financial aid that doesn't require any repayment.
And right now, with COVID-19, there might be some changes within the government, some more leniency with interest and repayment. So we are not informed of any updates, but I would encourage you, if you have questions, to go to studentaid.gov, contact student aid or your lender directly, and just get some answers about what is happening right now because of COVID, and is there anything that can help me if you're in need. But it's one thing I will say is that you should always be making payments if you can. So that's just going to help you in the long run. If you can make payments, just keep making payments.
Yeah. Student aid, is it student.aid.edu?
Studentaid.gov.
.gov. Okay. Sorry, I'm just noting it down. So I was wondering areas where students can save when I was, so I am originally from California and Los Angeles, Palm Beach, California, which is in LA County. Everyone kind of owns a car just because it's crazy traffic over there. And the bus system is really bad. But I was saving up for a study abroad trip and I was trying to cut out certain expenses, which for me was driving in a car and paying for gas. But then I had to kind of give up the convenience of driving because like the bus would take 40 minutes to come. What areas can students start to save and cut that off of their budget if they want to meet a personal goal? And you can also give your own personal experiences.
Yeah, I think cars are expensive because, if you don't own it already, you're paying for it. Maybe you have a car loan. You're paying for the car still through that loan, which has interest. So you're even paying the dealership or the bank or whoever lent you that money a little bit of money every time because they let you get the car ahead of the time when you actually had the money in your account. Don't worry, most people, if they buy a car, they need some kind of car loan. But let's say you didn't pay for the car, you inherited it, or you just have one at your disposal. They're still expensive because you still have to have car insurance. You still have to pay gas. You still have to get oil changes. You have to pay to park at places most often. And so it's a kind of an ongoing expense. And as Cassandra mentioned, public transportation is not always the most convenient, but the convenience of having the car, you pay for it. It's a luxury. And so just like public transportation, it's less luxurious, but you don't pay as much to have it. If you're a U of M student, the U Pass is one of the best deals you'll find in town. I love the budget. I used to look at it like crazy about how the expense differences are. If you have a U Pass versus if you were to pay, let's say you just rode the bus during rush hour times at the peak rate, the U Pass pays for itself in a month. It's just a phenomenal deal. But you got to use it in order for it to get its value. But basically, you ride the bus spread out over the course of a semester for 1 month worth of days. It's paid for itself. So it's a really good value. Look into other ways to manage your transportation. Maybe that means having a friend pick you up on the way there, or if you have the vehicle, picking other people up, and just, carpool money. I guess sometimes it's kind of awkward to ask your friends for some carpool money, but if you can just say, hey, can you Venmo me quick for some gas? Some folks would be happy to give you $2 each to ride in the car instead of having to pay for their own Uber or Lyft, which is also a ride share as a premium. And, find other ways, biking around the cities, walkability, find things you can walk to, maybe public transportation to a spot that's close enough for you to walk. You got to get a little creative, but yeah, transportation can definitely be an expense that sneaks up on people.
My undergrad was like an hour away from the Twin Cities. And so we had this school newsletter and they would have different posts on there and different people would say, oh, I need a ride up to the cities, or they would say, oh, I'm going up to the cities. Does anyone need a ride? And then they could reach out to each other. If we were on campus, of course, then you're doing something for campus. A lot of campuses have vehicles that you can use if you're doing some sort of student event or something for your job. So there are some resources as a college student. I'm not sure if you can kind of maybe try social media now when we are back on campus and there's more people together. And I guess even now, if you're in your hometown, it's always great to connect with other students or alumni in your area if you trust them. I mean, I trust everyone that I meet through my college, but it is up to you if you want to trust them, especially with coronavirus. But yeah, I would say definitely make those connections and build those networks.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Can hear you now.
Okay. So we're coming close to 5. You are a financial wellness committee. Can you talk more about the wellness aspect of budgeting?
Sure. Mila, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You can go ahead. I need to
Okay.
think about it a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think before I got really into budgeting, money was the most stressful thing in my life. Like always on the top of my mind, like, I shouldn't have bought that. I'll buy something to make myself feel better. Or I'm already this deep in the hole. What's the extra this? And it was a really vicious cycle. And I didn't feel any comfort around any of my financial decisions because I didn't have any purpose with them. So I feel like when I really invested myself into budgeting and learning about what I'm capable of spending, I'd say that's the best way to look at it is where are my opportunities to spend and where did I need to dial it back? Because it's not that I was really spending erroneously on things that are just beyond the belief or of any idea. I was just doing what we all do, just going out a few too many times, treating myself one too many times to this, that, or the other thing. That it's all natural human behavior. And instead of like telling myself no more spending, I instead said, okay, yeah, you can still spend on these things you want, but just make sure it's within the limits, within reasonable. So you're not running a deficit every month. Spend on those things in a way that you can do it and feel good about it. And I found myself feeling a lot more rewarded in my purchases. And when I was able to track and see some of those things, I found myself not valuing too some of the things that I was just doing because I had always done it, some of the things along the way that, gosh, I don't even know if I have an example for it, but some expenses that in my mind originally were like a fixed expense. I have to buy that. I always buy that. And then I kind of looked back on it and thought, I don't know if I really want that anymore. Maybe I'd actually prefer to shift that money more into this trip I'm planning or this new game console I want to buy. Like I can shift my money that way. And then it's going towards something really targeted into what I'm really interested in. And so it felt very empowering to me. And I want that to be the attitude towards budgeting when I meet with students, is that it's not putting the brakes on your spending habits. It's not doing any of that. It's just being strategic about it and making it so you feel good about what you're doing and you're not going off the deep end in certain areas. That's all it is, because you can still enjoy your life and just know where your money's going and what it's up to. So that's my response.
When I think about wellness and financial wellness, I think about it as one part of wellness. So there's financial wellness, and then there's physical wellness, there's mental wellness, there's relationships, and there's a bunch of different categories that might be meaningful to you and that you want to be healthy in. And so it's just like if you were to work on your physical wellness, you have to work on your financial wellness in order to get to where you want to be and live a life that you deem as healthy. So it's for me, if I neglect my finances, then it's going to hurt me. And not just financially, but because I'm one person, my life is connected, it's going to affect other areas in my life too. So it might affect, like, create anxiety, or it might affect like how I might be able to help my family in the future. And so everything is kind of connected, and you just really have to keep working on it. And we're all adults, and we're still working on it too. So it's not something that is gonna be like, okay, it's a check off my list. It's gonna be something that you're gonna have to keep working on and learning about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. This is actually perfect timing. I would like to thank you both for being here. I can't believe it's been an hour. Honestly, I feel like talking about finances isn't that exciting, but I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you both for being here and sharing and kind of making budgeting more interesting.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an exciting conversation.
Yeah, APARC hopes to continue this collaboration. Okay. I think we're